I'm Half Jack, and I gave this talk in the spring at another con, and I thought I would try to do it to a different audience and see what y'all thought. So we'll start off with a little cognitive dissonance in the form of a joke. A man walks into a bar and says, "Dang, who put that bar so low?" Bro.
Yes. Was he a stormtrooper? Yeah.
All right. Well, we're all geeks, but we're also all humans, and well,
That's what you think.
Most of them. And being alive is kind of cool, and I'm looking to try to be alive as long as I can. So I've always kept my eye out, listening to stuff, and thinking about what maybe we should do, because, of course, our choices have a huge impact on our past, so whether we're to the grave earlier or later. But, especially for geeks, we're screwed as far as evolutionary terms and trends go, okay? So, here's where our genes came from. Okay? We developed in a world where we lived in close-knit family groups. We led extremely active outdoor lives. Right?
Historic.
That's what I say. This is how the genes develop.
I got you.
All right, okay. This is the before picture. Right? Stress was acute. That is, a fight to the death for the control of the women, or eating the cave bear, or he eats you, that sort of thing. But once that was over, back to the pastoral setting. We consumed pretty much anything that we could get our hands on, because we were hungry most of the time. And we didn't have access to concentrated sugar and large amounts of fat in general. Of course, what that did was, when we could get them, we ate a lot of them. And that was, of course, why they taste so good. Today, we live much more individualistic lives, especially in America. We are plagued by intellectual stress rather than stress as far as the flight or fight type things. We make our living and find our entertainment sitting in front of a screen. We're inside under artificial light, and we snack on highly processed, salty, fatty foods, food-like substances, I would mention. And that we wash down with a nice, tasty, caffeinated Cheers. So, we're basically doing it wrong. And we're paying the price for it, of course. You look at the consequences of that, and it may be looking at it in the mirror every morning. It may be, attending funerals for people that are only a few years older than you, that died of, quote, natural causes. But what I'm here to tell you is that it's not all bad news. Okay? We can sort of do both. We can keep on doing what we're doing with a few small changes and get back a little bit to the things that happen that would help us out. And actually, there's some other benefits beyond just thinking about health benefits. Okay? So we need to RTFM and run it the right way. That is, we need to get moving, probably more than we do. We need to eat right, which, like I said, that's always a debate. Is butter good or bad for you? Should you substitute butter, a margarine for butter, et cetera, et cetera. Get more, better sleep, mitigate the stress. Be social, because that's what our brains feel comfortable doing. And Facebook doesn't count. We actually need to get in there where we can see their faces and interpret the actions that are going on there, and smell their pheromones to make everything. Those the mammal brain.
Skype doesn't count.
Skype doesn't count. Go outside and play. Both being outside and the playing. Recreational activities are real important. And, of course, stop smoking. Now, guess what? I bet most people have heard all the things on that list before. Like I said, we're not telling you anything new.
None of this sounds familiar.
Well, that's what I think, but sometimes running into students of mine, some of them don't know that, well, gosh, it really would be better for your body if you moved around and sweated once in a while. So that's sort of the origin of this talk, is some of the things that I tell people that they act surprised though. One of the things that I do want to sort of emphasize is that many of the problems that we think that come from getting old are not really age-related. They are lifestyle diseases, not age diseases. So the obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of these things are not something that you're automatically going to get when you reach 50, 60, 70, 80. It depends on what you put in your mouth most of the time.
That's right, Kurt. You shut your dirty whore mouth.
Yeah, what sort of the background of this is that things are complicated and simple at the same time. And you've probably seen the little diagram here in 8th grade biology class and stuff like that. Like, oh, here's the little factor that makes ATP and powers things, and that is just wrong.
Damn it, boy.
You've got to think about this.
Turning all around upside down.
Think of a cell as like a big old car factory, because that's the size, scope, and complexity of each little cell in your body. Is that it's got incredibly complex processes, assembly lines. It needs a constant influx of right materials and molecules to build proteins and chemicals and RNA components that it needs. And so, a simplified view is, oh, let me just dump a little bit of this chemical in there, and that cell will do this or that. No, that's like saying, oh, I'll just ship some tires to the car factory and it'll roll out my new Kia. Thousands of parts have to go into that, be assembled, and do it. And it can get by if one or two parts is the wrong size, or has extra junk on it or whatever. But you don't get sort of the perfect 200,000, 300,000 mile car out the other end if the parts aren't just right in there. So what you need to do is you've got to provide a big old inventory of lots of different feed substances, lots of different molecules that go into it, so that it can do its job right. Okay? So we have simple simple results. The cell lives, it dies, it makes stuff, but the complexity behind that is hard. And that's a lot like software. A million lines of code gives you a desktop. Okay, doesn't look complicated, but something goes on behind to make it happen. And that's sort of the way the cells are. But we don't have to decompile the software. All we got to do is sort of treat it like a black box and give it stuff that it needs to do its job. And we could do that a couple ways. We could try to read all scientific literature and find out what if people ate this kind of bread versus that kind of bread, or did this or did that or whatever. Or we could just basically roll back the clock on food and activity and stuff like that to our pre-industrial ancestors, and that's pretty much what we're adapted for. So we don't have to figure it out so much and just sort of do things, 300 or 400 years ago. So, what to avoid? Accidental death. Wear your seatbelt. Okay. If you ride a motorcycle, drive like the other person is drunk, stoned, and crazy. Probably want to wear a helmet, although there's a lot of debate on that. Intentional death. Okay, don't pick fights with people who have carry permits. Also, don't kill yourself. Suicide is still, a very, very, very big killer of people in this age group. Yeah. So, and those two, like I said, most people don't die of heart attack in the age group of, this crowd, but they do, accidental death and intentional death are the biggest. So if you can make it through that, you can later get old enough to worry about other things, such as heart disease. Okay? So, avoid injury, the undead, okay? And bad chemical processes. These are a couple things that we want to avoid in the body. Inflammation and stress. Okay? So, inflammation is a good thing in the body. It helps us fight off bacteria, it repairs injuries. That's why when you hurt yourself, it swells up, is that it gets a lot of chemicals going in there to the repair crew to put back the roads and bridges in order. Okay? However, the same stress that makes us respond to emergencies, our job, our relationships, all that kind of stuff can cause sort of a chronic level of that, and that's terrible stress. The difference between sort of a chronic one and a static one would be, if you're sort of on edge about the date with the new woman, your body's pumping, your mind is going, your sweaty palms and stuff like that.
Where's Jordan?
That's sort of good stress. It's episodic. It'll come, it'll go, and your body will actually kind of be pumped up from it. Being stuck in a loveless marriage for the next 40 years, that's chronic stress. That's not going to be the best thing for you, your health, and all that.
Are you recommending divorce?
Well, let's go back. Number one or number two. Sorry, depends on. Have to evaluate your own situation. Your mileage may vary. So, chronic stress is indicated in most of the bad things that happen to us: asthma, arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, cancer. The jury's still out on that, but it's most likely, yeah. Okay? So, like I said, specific stress is good. We get some, adrenaline rolling out there. We needed that historically. Fight or flight is the name for it, and sometimes one or two of those would keep us alive. Okay? The constant stress is bad. Okay? Notice that it, basically if you're on a war footing all the time, things at home fall apart. And we've got, weakened bones, decreased libido, inflammation, which we want to avoid, stress leads to, and of course our mental health.
Weakened bones to chronic stress.
Yeah. The constant release of cortisol will basically pull calcium out of the lungs. So it's bad. Like I said, it's really bad. The classic study on this was a longitudinal study in Britain. They looked at the civil servants. And basically, if you look at people who are peons versus people who are supervisors, the folks that did not have control of the circumstances and had to do what other people did and were, sort of stuck, their rates of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all of the bad things that happened, their rates were much, much higher than the people who were supervisors and had more control over their lives and therefore had lower stress levels. So that is sort of the gold standard, was that stress caused their bodies to fall apart. So that's what we want to avoid. So we need to take steps on it. We can't always avoid the situation, but sometimes it helps how we deal with it. Okay. So how do we avoid stress? The bad things, we try to don't do, ingest, or encounter things that cause inflammation and stress. Now, some of these are diet, some of these are situational, that kind of stuff. So let's get to the nitty-gritty, the one that everybody knew I was going to talk about. So,
all this led to that?
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Look what's out of this. Michael Pollan have written extensively on the whole industrial food process and plants and man's role in their evolution and stuff like that. And his advice is just simple: 3 things. Eat food, which many of the things you find in the grocery store don't qualify. They're food-like substances. Okay? If you can't understand any of the ingredients without a dictionary or looking it up on the internet, it's probably not food. This is basic, stuff, real stuff, animal, vegetable origin. If it didn't come from a factory, it's more likely to be food. Not too much. The volume matters. Sometimes our eyes do overload our mouth as far as how much we want to eat. And it's good, but sometimes the big problem with us is that we have a delay between when our stomach is full and when our brain finds out about it.
Why are you looking at me?
You just resemble that remark.
Can you overclock my CPU?
So that's that's a big problem, is that we eat too much because we still feel hungry and it tastes good. And
And
we're
worse,
programmed to do that.
those food-like substances have got chemicals in them that keep you hungry.
That keep you hungry, right?
MSG.
Mostly plants. That's, there's the whole paleo diet thing. And it's really debatable as whether that much meat was on prehistoric man's diet. There was definitely meat in there, but we sort of ate everything that we came along to, that is plants, grains, berries.
Bugs.
Bugs, that's what I said. Sometimes it was meat, but it wasn't a steak, it was a grub, because they were easy to find and didn't bite back. So, that's general good advice, but the question is, of course, how the heck do you implement it? That's what our ancestors ate. That's what our genes are predisposed for. And like I said, our genes are just mismatched for our food environment. We love salty, sugary, and fatty things because when you were hungry a lot of times, if you got those, you wanted to eat a bunch of them. But now when they're so plentiful, we see the flip side.
That says the man that was eating chocolate-covered bacon at the
Hey,
sandwich
I'm going to get to that. Chocolate covered bacon is good for you on both accounts. So we need to eat equal nutrition, not fuel. Like I said, we're looking for high nutritional density and low calories, which for the most part is good fruits and vegetables and stuff. Okay? As far as looking better in the mirror, processed carbs. These are the villain. We want to avoid them. Right? Processed carbs have all of the good stuff they started with taken out, ground off at the factory. And then the lesser result is sold to us at much higher prices because they had to work on it. And because it's very easy and cheap with our agricultural system to buy grow lots of grain and corn, then we can grind it up and turn it into fructose corn syrup and white flour and put it in everything that comes along, from tomato sauce to the bread. So the reason this is bad is that the easily digestible sugars or carbs are broken down into sugar. Our bodies have a thing to try to maintain homeostasis, and so when the sugar level goes up, we release insulin if we have a properly working pancreas. So,
As you look at me,
as I look at
thanks
you,
a lot.
that's right. Don't have to have a cybernetic pancreas on our head. So, but like I
I'm slowly
said,
being integrated.
yeah, but the high sugar level releases insulin. Insulin pulls it out, says, I need this later, and puts it in fat. Unfortunately for us, later never comes because we don't go hungry. So the sugar that we keep eating and spiking our blood sugar just keeps slipping over into fat. Now, rainy day fun that keeps on growing. Eventually will, when it happens, the glucose will be stripped out because we got a bunch of sugar, we've reached your bust insulin, and of course everybody's heard of the sugar crash. You drink something sugary, and an hour later you're real droopy. Well, that's because the blood sugar went way high and then went way low, and we want to try to eat stuff that keeps it right in the middle. Okay? So the really bad thing is that after we do this a certain number of times, it's like we've got a gun with so many bullets in it. After we shoot so many bullets, our insulin release, but the cells don't respond to it, and so our blood sugar just is not being able to be regulated. And that extra sugar in the blood leads to all sorts of things: eye problems, blindness, plugging up little capillaries in our extremities, and losing toes and ankles and knees and that sort of thing. So we want to avoid diabetes real bad. Okay. So it also leads to ED, erectile dysfunction. So we don't want diabetes. It's a bad thing.
Not that over here, right?
So how do we avoid it? The biggest thing is don't drink juice and soda. Even fruit juices have all the good stuff taken out of them and just the sugar left over. So orange juice and a Coke are pretty much level nutritionally wise. So don't do that.
What about V8?
V8 depends on the product. Some of theirs have got like extra sugar, but actually V8s are pretty good for you. But plain old water will do.
One thing to watch with V8 is the salt content.
Yeah.
Salt content.
Very high.
Yes, they do. Salt's, like I said, kind of a tricky issue is that unless you have high blood pressure, there's not a whole lot of evidence that salt is bad for you. But like I said, the jury's still out. There is some upcoming evidence that maybe it leads to inflammation.
By juice, do you mean processed juice? Because if I take an apple and I throw it to the juicer,
Mhm.
all it is just chopped up.
Right, it says pure chopped up apple. If there's a little sheet that goes off the side and throws away the stuff that doesn't juice, then that's not really that good. Yeah, the pulp. We want the pulp because it's got the stuff that makes sugar not be absorbed so fast, which is the fiber. So orange juice is bad. Eat the orange, it's great. You know? So the grape is pretty good. The grape juice, not so good.
What about some of the juices that say only sweetened by fruit?
That's the sugar they pulled out of fruit, so it's still sugar. Okay. Beer, beer, I don't know. Guinness is good for you. Is the campaign.
Where's Mr. Barry? He can tell you.
High in fiber.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's processed. Of course, you know, with there you get the calories and the alcohol, and the alcohol is good for sort of keeping that blood thin and running through all the little capillaries. So. Not too much. On most of this, the answer is as long as you don't do too much of it, probably okay.
Advocating stouts over lights.
Sorry?
Stouts over lights.
Don't know. Everybody's going to list the beer. How's this one for you? But on the soda, diet soda is not particularly good for you either. There's a lot of evidence that the sweetener makes your brain think that sugar's coming. And so when your mouth tastes it, but your stomach doesn't taste it, it says, oh, well, you just must need more of it. So it will actually lead you to eat other things because of that sort of mismessage between the taste buds. And basically you have taste buds in your stomach too. So, but like I said, the diet doesn't really help. Water, V8, water, the stuff that we were, basically that we developed, to eat and drink. Cortisol, our friend that also, makes bones weak and leads to impotence, is also released when blood sugar is low. So you spike, it drops down. Oh, I'm stressed out. Let me release some cortisol. So bad thing. Now, this is the thing. We've been taught for the last 20, 30 years in America for medicine is that fat is bad for you. Take a low-fat diet. But we need fat. Our brains, our skin, many of our internal organs have lots and lots of fat that build up cell walls, makes things happen. So fat is not a bad thing, although you need to be a little bit careful where you get it from. Okay? So bacon is good. You don't want to eat it every meal. Okay? A couple times a week, be fine. But especially you're looking to get most of your fats from plant-based sources. That is nuts, avocados, coconuts. So those sources, they have oils in them. Some of them are saturated fats, which saturated fats bad. No, not really, especially if they come from plants. Okay. The really sad thing is that we took away butter, we took away fried and lard, and we replaced it with trans fats, which supposedly were good. But it turns out trans fats are like the worst thing that we can put in our bodies that modern technology produces. So go with the natural, unprocessed, okay? Except chopped up guacamoles. All right, the blender for the pina colada, that's all right. All right, protein, we do need protein, but we don't need huge amounts unless you're building muscles. So unless you're working out a lot, you probably need to cut down your protein intake and replace that with veggies. Okay? And the fiber that's missing from our processed foods, important, helps, basically it prevents ass cancer, having a lot of fiber. Nobody wants ass cancer, so do eat a lot of fiber. If we eat the stuff before it's processed, it has the fiber in there. Yeah, it's all nice one little package. So remember, our bodies ate this stuff. They ate the whole grain, they ate the whole fruits. That's what they're built for. And like I said, a balance. You can eat the El Grande Mexican meal, but don't do it every meal, and don't do something that's equivalent to it every meal. You can have, you don't have to quit enjoying food, but you do just want to, watch your choices. Like I said, vegetarians are usually pretty healthy. So does that mean that meat is bad? Well, mostly it means that vegetables are good. Most of the benefit from a high vegetarian diet, whichever level you go, most of that comes from eating the vegetables that our bodies really need. So again, you just want to watch the calories on the meat. Like I said, some people just don't do good on the vegetarian diet, and some people are fine on it. And all our genes are a little bit different, so watch on that one. But like I said, fat, skip the tasteless, processed meat, skinless chicken breast. Go for something that's more natural, more closer to the original. Tuna, lean beef, pasture-raised chicken, with the skin on. Like I said, that skin that chicken has on it, we need it for our neurons, we need it for our skin, we need it for our eyes. Going down that path, I kept thinking, well, maybe the perfect food is other humans because they have all the pieces in them that we need. I don't know. It disturbs me. I can't find the trouble with that logic. Yes, question.
Yeah, you're talking about eating the chicken with the skin, but we were taught in class that this skin is where like all the cholesterol and the bad fat is.
Well, there's the question about whether it's a bad fat or not. It's mostly a case of amounts. If we ate lots and lots and lots of fat, that's not good in any way, shape, or form. But the cholesterol in our diet there's not a whole lot of correlation between the actual cholesterol in our diet and cholesterol in our bloodstream, since our bodies manufacture cholesterol all the time. So it's a question of how does our body deal with the cholesterol, which is mostly related to, again, the whole insulin sugar thing. Is that carbs getting sugar spikes? Most of that is related to the bad cholesterol. That.
Also, in the matter of seafood, there are certain varieties that you don't want to have too often because of high mercury content.
That's right. They're high up in the food chain, so they collect or accumulate mercury and other contaminants. Certain types of tuna are in that there. But then, like I said, the smaller the fish, generally the better it is for you. Sardines are actually superb for you. The oils, and you ever heard about omega-3s and all that? The tablets, again, it's always this reduction of stuff. Oh, I'll take a pill, but the pill doesn't have all of the parts. It's like sending tires to the Kia plant. You need sort of the whole thing. But sardines, I eat sardines pretty much, every day. And it's really, really good for blood cholesterol levels.
What's like the worst fish you can have to eat? Is it like catfish?
Worst fish to eat? Like I said, you would want to avoid one that had a high mercury content. So,
Bad fishing for great whites.
Swordfish and shark.
Swordfish, as far as fish that might be contaminated the most with mercury, and even then, it's more a case of, if you're 50 years old, probably don't have to worry as much as if you're a 20-year-old female about to become pregnant, because mercury is out there, and you wouldn't want to eat it, 4 times a week, maybe once in a couple weeks.
When it comes to the seafood also, with the mercury, isn't it also maybe a bad idea to eat too much because of the iodine content?
I have no idea on the influence of iodine content related to, is it bad for that, mercury on that as well. So I don't know about that. Okay? So basically on your diet, what you're looking for is variety, color, and unmessed around withness. Okay? That is, don't process it. Okay? If it's got flour and sugar in it, don't pick it up. That's what you want to avoid. That is what leads to obesity and diabetes and all sorts of other problems. Like I said, also the whole carbohydrate thing hugely impacts your cholesterol, HDL, LDL level. Okay? Like I said, eat the sausage, but leave the biscuit. Labels on food are lies. If it says it's low in fat, it's high in sugar. And if it's low in sugar, it's high in fat and salt. Okay? Again, if it's all processed, got the barcode on it, you probably don't want it. That's not real food. Okay? Colorful veggies and greens, carrots, sweet potatoes, kale, spinach, turnips, broccoli, cauliflower. Cauliflower's not really that colorful, but it's still got a lot of fiber and tastes. Okay? Beans, the magical fruit.
Mario.
So, the beans are extremely good for you. And like I said, they're easy to cook. You cook in a slow cooker and throw a chunk of ham in there. Come out, tastes good, filling. Fruits come up with a lot of antioxidants to protect the fruit from free radicals and that stuff. we eat them, and we get antioxidants. We have to watch the sugar because a lot of ripe fruit has been developed to have lots of sugar. You know, I said the little, pit-sized cherry of ancient times that we would eat because we were hungry and needed vitamin C is now turned into a nice fat plump one that's full of sugar. So we just got upset. Okay? Nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds, these types of things are really, really good for us. The oil, like I said, we need oil, and this is a great source for it. Whole grains are good. Like I said, everybody remembers the fruit pyramid they taught you in elementary school? Okay? Developed with the assistance of, the cattlemen associations and America's grain growers. It is all messed up. It doesn't really tell the story. Basically, it was influenced as a marketing scheme rather than any health-based stuff behind it. So, as a whole, we eat way too many processed carbs because it's in that bread and grains category at the bottom that they say we should eat. No, they're starting to revise that, but it's still out there. A lot of people think, I should eat a lot of bread, grains. No. They said whole grains pretty good. Whole grains actually are fairly recent development, so there's a question about whether our genes are really sort of situated for that. So, like I said, vegetables more than the grains. Vegetables, lots of them, some grains, some meat, fat sprinkled all the way through the week. Okay. Sleep.
Do you have a picture of what the food pyramid should look like?
There's like I said, the government is a revised one that's got a lot better now. The USDA finally came off of that old one.
Do you have one that you feel is better?
Their new one is pretty good. Like I said, lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. Beans and grains, more beans and grains. Meat at the top, at the point, not a whole lot. But the main content being lots of variety, because like I said, we got to get lots of different parts to our car factory to make that car. So the more varied our diet is, the more likely we're going to collect all the little pieces that make good cells and good proteins. So diet. I know there's a ton of questions about diet, and like I said, we're just now sort of recovering from a few decades of bad diet advice. Well, probably 50 years of bad diet advice. Ever since they said, don't eat eggs and bacon and, have tofu with margarine instead. But we're like I said, starting to actually get some food advice that's actually based upon science rather than just conjecture. Sleep, incredibly important. It's so easy to do without it. We can go to bed late, get up early, get the job done. But sleep is super important, tied to major boosting in the immune system. The more sleep you have, the less heart disease you have. The less sleep you have, the more likely you are to be overweight, because sleep not only is necessary to basically refresh the brain and body, but it's important in sort of regulating the hormone levels of different things that tell us how hungry we are and tell us what our brain should do and stuff like that. The deaths that lead to early death, although that study may be kind of influenced by stress levels. It was like night workers had a much higher death rate, early mortality compared to folks that work during the day. So 37% of car accidents are caused by drowsy motorists, right? Followed by cell phones and then drunk driving, most likely. When we go to daylight savings time, when we fall back and we get an extra hour of sleep, traffic rates go down, or traffic accidents go down 8% in that next week. Okay? In the spring, when we spring forward and lose an hour, that 8% catches up, because there's 8% more accidents than normal that week after daylight savings time. So huge impact on alertness and the general health. So do sleep. Okay? So we should get out in the sunlight. In case you're not familiar, the big burning orb in the sky during certain hours of the day is the sun. Okay? That sunlight goes through our eyes, goes to a couple of different parts of the brain, parts that we see with, but also some hormone control parts, the pineal gland. And it sort of syncs us up and keeps us, in tune with our environment. Again, artificial lights, screens, mess that all up, and we don't have sort of a regular march of how our processes work through the day. Okay, so regular report schedule is important as much as we can do it. We want to restrict time before bedtime because light at that time of the day will sort of reset our clock, make us more awake, make it hard to sleep, won't get as deep a sleep. Okay? Being interrupted by text in the middle of the night, not a good idea. A big chunk is better than several small chunks that add up to the same amount. Activity, right? These are the things that can be influenced by our activity. Pretty much all the stuff, right? Is how we feel, dealing with stress, memory, learning, libido, sleep, more we exercise, those. Okay? That's all sort of the brain side. Body side, our immune system is boosted, helps clear out our arteries because it sort of pumps up blood, thins it, washes away plaque and things like that. Our reaction to the release of stress hormones, okay? Of course, weight control, and it boosts our energy. Sitting around all day, you just sort of want to be a lump and sit around all day. Get out and move, and you're a little bit more motivated to move some more. So, exercise provides benefits to our brain. It's actually, our brains, whenever we learn and encounter new stuff, it actually rewires itself. Okay? New synapses are formed, our nerve cells send out a little contact piece and touch other nerves. And when we exercise, our bodies produce a brain-derived neurotrophic factor that basically is like fertilizer for our brain cells. And it makes them grow and connect and do stuff. The reason this, pretty much scientists are thinking this is that we were very, very mobile as, sort of pre-industrial humans, or I would say pre-city humans. And we needed to be able to learn where stuff was. So when we were out moving around and we found a great spot for picking berries, our brains needed to learn that. And so if motion and learning are very, very tied together. That's why, anybody ever heard the concept of a memory palace? Okay, this is the thing, these memory champs that are, can remember 1,000-digit numbers, stuff like this. Many of them use the concept of a memory palace where they're visualizing their brain's places and putting numbers or concepts or something there. And because we had to move around in an environment that didn't have Google Maps yet, we had to learn where stuff was. So we've got a really place-oriented memory. And that's why ideas like the memory palace help work, is that we're thinking in places and we can put stuff in there and our brains are just really built to remember that kind of stuff. So basically, exercising makes you smarter. Okay? It actually will boost IQ points, not just performance on other tasks, although it does that too. But in measuring IQ points, it will actually be a boost.
But there's a contradiction.
Yes.
Why do we have dumb jocks?
That's a good question. You can only fertilize,
So much.
So much.
If you don't put seed down, nothing's going to grow.
Another benefit of exercise, of course, greater blood flow, which our brains use an incredible amount of that sugar and oxygen that's in our bodies, and getting the blood flowing helps everything, all our organs and skin and stuff like that, but also our brain because it basically pumps all the food to it that it needs. Okay? So, because of all from BDNF and other neurotrophic growth factors, our neurons, like I said, they grow, they survive better, and again, like I said, I think it's tied to location-based memory and brain stuff. Of course, the cardiovascular disease, big factor in dementia. That is, if you get clogged of arteries in your neck, don't get as much blood to the brain, and it leads to functional deficits. Okay? And cortisol, remember bad cortisol? Well, this makes activity makes the body less sensitive to that. So when you are stressed, your body doesn't do as many bad things to itself because of it. So it just really, like I said, so many doctors just call it the fountain of youth, is that moving our bodies, getting the blood pumping is just incredibly beneficial for our health, makes you live longer. If I remember Jack LaLanne,
Yeah.
I mean, he's like ancient.
He died.
Yeah.
He died about just
Just what, 6 months ago?
He died, he was almost 100 years old.
Yeah, he was almost 100 years old. And can't say that exercise made him to 100 years old because
Didn't hurt.
You got to know the bell curve is that we've got the bell curve. People over here, they can smoke, drink, and carouse with wild women, and they'll still live to 100. Okay, people over here, they're going to die at 40 just because. But all these people in the middle, they can shift their lifespan by doing certain good things. And exercise certainly doesn't help. Or doesn't hurt.
Supposedly, I read on Yahoo News, there's a guy in Europe somewhere, he's supposedly like 130 years old.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Like I said, he would be, on the natural part of the bell curve.
But if you look at some of the people that lived the longest, they were slaves.
Oh, really?
I've done research on
Okay, yeah, lots of activity, and I guess depends on how the stress level will be. Don't have to decide what you're going to do today. But,
I mean, I'm not saying that's a good.
yeah, just like I said, statistically.
They have a lot of activity.
Burning calories during it, and your body sort of gets pumped up, and it keeps on burning even after you stop. Okay. Of course, our muscles strengthen in response to induced exhaustion. You don't have to lift, huge amounts. You just have to lift it till your muscles can't lift anymore. And that'll happen fast with heavy weights and longer with slow weights. But both of them will make your muscles shrink. Big immune boost. The more people exercise, directly related to decreased diseases as far as catching colds and stuff like that. Okay. Helps our cholesterol, and again, like I said, it already reduces our stress responses. Okay. So you don't have to be a marathoner, a triathlete, or any of that stuff. Okay. I think most of the people who do that are probably sort of addicted to the that endorphin release for that. But that's fine. Only that they're probably going to wear out some points and have to have replacements sometime sooner than most people. So walking is like the perfect exercise. Just heavy enough to get the blood pumping, but not so much to ruin your knees, like jogging or running. You should try to include intervals. If you used to could get winded after walking up the stairs, but in the last couple of years you've got winded walking to the refrigerator, you need to increase your endurance, and intervals, that is short bursts of intense activity, will sort of help your body get geared up for that. So those are important. And strength training, fat, muscle burns, fat burns calories all the time, and so having more muscle helps you control that. But glucose control, again, mitigating that boost, sugar spike, bone density, all of those things are important for strength training. So a little bit of everything. Again, the same thing, moderation is the key. Don't eat all of one thing, just eat a little bit of everything. Right? So diet and activity together really help all of these things. Right? So high blood pressure, cholesterol, hangover, that is the hangover your belt, and not this morning. Adult onset diabetes, and you should know these numbers. In case you don't, you should know what your blood pressure is. You should know what your cholesterol count is. When you get the blood test for cholesterol, you should check to see what your glucose levels are. So if you don't know those, it's a good time to try. Every community pretty much has free screening every year that you can get blood taken for very free or very little. So watch out for those, and or search on the internet for them and find out those numbers, because not knowing them lead to premature death unnecessarily. Because most of them you can take a pill and it will help it some. It's just that if you do the exercise and diet, you avoid the side effects of the pills. Okay? But like I said, a lot of people can throw away their pills after they have tackled the problem and changed their diet, changed their activity level. So we're running out of time here, so I'm going to say that we want to try to stack the deck for your success. Okay? Don't buy the junk food and keep it around the house, just in case. Like I said, you can't eat it if it's not there. Keep some frozen vegetables. You don't have to eat fresh vegetables. They're great. But frozen vegetables today are so close to being fresh that you get all the health benefits, and it's much more convenient. Okay? Drag some out of the freezer, throw them in a bowl, microwave them 10 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on how much it is. Drizzle olive oil and sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on it and dig in. Eat it with the chicken breast or not, or salad or whatever, but veggies. Okay? The good thing is that you pretty much can't eat too many vegetables. So you can eat until you're full and overfull, and it's still going to be good for you. Okay? So there's no downside to eating the vegetables. Okay? Slow cooker is great for cooking chili with beans or beans or grain, soak grains and cook them all day, and they'll be tasty at the end of the day. Balance is key. Go ahead and throw some meat in there that's got protein and fat, and eat it with it. It'll make it taste better, and you don't get too much from it. But, a little bit of meat mixed with the vegetables, fine. Okay. You can always make it a game. Of course, gamification is a big thing everywhere. We can track our steps. We can challenge our friends to walk more miles, or we can walk more in one day than they can. Put a checklist. Say, okay, I want to say every other day I'm going to get 30 minutes of activity or 20 minutes of activity with that. Basically, any activity is good enough to start with. If you can just 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. Don't feel like you got to walk for an hour. Right? It's trade-off between should I do this extra work or should I take 30 minutes to exercise. Studies show that you're actually more productive if you take off the time and do the little exercise, and then you lost 30 minutes of work, but you're going to be better at work when you come back. Right? So it's like every study says, do it. Okay? Sleep versus exercise, get the sleep. You're better off with the sleep. It's that big of an influence on it. Okay. Supplements, vitamin D, if you are a female and might ever become pregnant, you want to take folic acid. And fiber. You could probably benefit from adding a little fiber to every meal. That way, anything that does have a little bit sugar stuff in there, it's going to help mitigate. Let's see. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip through these to the end. Be social. Okay, that's what our brain's used for. It improves our mood. It makes us feel more connected. Overall benefits there. And of course, start smoking. 1 in 5 deaths in America is directly attributed to smoking. Right? 14 years is the average life shortening. And for the years that you are living, you have many more chronic health problems that impact your quality of life. Right? Cancer. Yeah, but also heart disease and respiratory conditions. About a third of deaths to each one of those. Most people, just eating cancer. Actually, smoking, kills, thousands, 100,000 people every year from heart disease. So those types of things are what we're looking for. If you insist on consuming an addictive drug, you might want to take up something a little less dangerous, like heroin. Okay? It's also less addictive, by the way. Right? 2% of chronic heroin users die every year. Right? 10% of the number of smokers die every year. Right? I think that number includes a lot of people who die because of smoking, although not presently smoking. And I went back and double checked those numbers. It really is that big a deal. Okay? Is that less than 2% of heroin users? Actually, if you look at occasional heroin users, it's like 0.5%. But tobacco is weaker. Nicotine is bad for you, but the smoking is worse. So I've seen several people with the e-cigarettes. Use those. Use those. The nicotine, like I said, it is a toxic alkaloid, and our bodies do basically tighten up our blood vessels and other stuff for it. But it's better to do that than to do the smoking. No matter what kind of chemicals they add to it to make it tastier. So just if you're thinking about smoking or thinking about quitting smoking, and you need the e-cigarette to do it, okay? Or just want to switch over, you need an e-cigarette for people that don't want to quit. But do that. Just don't get the actual raw tobacco. This is one case where the processed product is actually better for you than the original natural product. Right? So, I'm out of time, but maybe I can take one question.
Is smoking pot bad for you? Is smoking pot bad for you?
I was thinking about that question earlier. It's probably not doing your lungs any good, but there's a lot of things coming out that actually it's probably pretty healthy for us.
I'll volunteer to test it.
Yeah. They said, you know, I mean, medical marijuana is unquestionably as far as improving outcomes for cancer patients and you know, people who need to boost their diabetes and stuff like that. On the side of whether it's, or whether pot is good for you or not, I'm thinking that, I suspect it probably is. And like I said, maybe the smoking part is not wonderful for you. Yes.
Cabbage,
Cabbage
very good for you.
is excellent and it's tasty. You can
That's
cook
my-
it so many ways.
That's my lunch.
Yeah.
Along
There's a whole
with-
thing about, you know, fermented products,
Yeah.
yogurt and kefir and cabbage and coleslaw and sauerkraut and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff's good for you.
Microwave potato right here.
Microwave potato. Yeah.
One part that's
Very
missing
mobile.
from the earlier part of your presentation was you were comparing prehistoric man to modern.
Right.
The one part you didn't mention was the prehistoric man tended to live a shorter life
Well,
than modern men.
well, the numbers, like I say, if you look at average age, it's average age. Because people were basically living almost as long as they are now. It's just that thousands of children were dying young.
Now, when I looked at the numbers, as we excluded children, it was still a much shorter life.
It's still a much shorter life.
We had a lot of dangerous animals back
Right,
then.
Well,
you get eaten.
You get eaten, but you would get an infection and die.
That's
You know, and we do have many modern conveniences that are much beneficial. And like I said, you know, if you get around enough old people, you find out that, oh yeah, well, I almost died because my appendicitis burst, or I almost died because, you know, this medical situation came up. And because of the medical interventions that we have, they survived that and lived another 30 years. And you know, early man would not have really had
Right,
this.
well, the point I was trying to drive at was prehistoric man's body and their history did not drive towards a long life.
Right, is that once they reproduced, the extra life was, you know, pretty much.
Bonus.
Yeah, it was going. You know, once you've sown your seed, then you know you're not really useful anymore. But the body itself is still built to last, and you know we can with modern, if we eat right and exercise and have modern interventions, then we can live a lot longer life and be healthy right up to the end, rather than spending 10 years in a bed in a nursing home at the end of our lives. So, all right, question?
What about rice?
Rice.
Brown rice.
Brown rice, okay. Yellow or white or any other color that has all the good stuff running off of it, bad. Okay. So yeah, like I said, if it's not the whole thing, then it's probably bad for you.
I remember you telling me something.
Also, if you're diabetic, Diane, you have some foods will cause a much faster rise in blood sugar than others.
Right, even in their whole state. Yeah.
Grains and potatoes and so on, you have to watch the quantity because it will spike your blood sugar faster than.
Right, and like I said, you know, again, that's where the variety comes in, is that if you have something with the fiber and some vegetables and some protein all there together, it moderates the spike or the release of blood, you know, sugar, and then the spike of, you know, the blood sugar levels. All right, I gotta get around to wait for the next person, I guess. Although I haven't seen them waiting at home.
Okay, good one.
Thank you.